The auctioneer's voice cracked in the heat, each word dragged through dust and boredom. Cattle had already been sold, tools exchanged, even a rusted harmonica fetched more interest than the girl standing barefoot on the wooden platform. Her eyes were pale and unfocused, fixed on nothing, her hands folded the way she'd learned to keep them, small, quiet, invisible. Blind since birth, someone muttered. Useless mouth, another laughed. No family, said the auctioneer, almost apologetic. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. The crowd shifted, boots scraping, hats pulled low. No one wanted the burden. No one wanted to look too closely at the way her shoulders trembled when the wind passed, or how she flinched at sudden sounds. $1, the auctioneer finally said, more to end the moment than to sell. $1, and she's gone. A single coin clinked somewhere in the crowd. Laughter followed. The auctioneer nodded, relief washing over his face as he reached for the hammer. Before it fell, a sound cut through the dust. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, measured. The cowboy hadn't spoken all day. He stood at the edge of the crowd, tall and weather-worn, his face half hidden beneath a hat that looked older than most men there. People noticed him only because of the way he moved, like someone who'd buried too much and learned to carry the weight. He stepped forward. The girl heard him before she felt him. The rhythm of his boots stopped just short of the platform. Her breath caught. She waited for another voice to claim her, another hand to pull her somewhere unknown. Instead, a hand reached for hers. Not rough, not grabbing, just warm, steady. She startled, instinctively pulling back, but the grip didn't tighten. It stayed open, patient, as if asking permission. Slowly, trembling, she placed her fingers against his palm. The cowboy lifted his head. "I'll take her," he said. His voice was low, unused, like it had been resting for years. The auctioneer blinked. "For $1. The cowboy nodded once. Someone scoffed. "You know she can't see, right?" "I know," the cowboy replied. "She won't work. I didn't ask her to. She'll slow you down." The cowboy's thumb brushed gently over the girl's knuckles. "I ain't in a hurry." The hammer fell. The crowd dispersed, interest already drifting back to livestock and trade. No one watched as the cowboy helped the girl down from the platform. No one noticed the way she clutched his sleeve as if the world had finally stopped spinning. They walked away together, dust rising behind them, the sun stretching long shadows across the land. For the first time in her life, no one was pulling her forward. He matched his pace to hers, adjusting without a word when she stumbled, stopping when she stopped. When she asked where they were going, he didn't answer right away. "Someplace quiet," he finally said. She nodded, trusting the sound of his voice more than any promise she'd never been given. As the town faded behind them, the wind carried the creak of leather, the soft crunch of boots, and the faintest sound of a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding finally being let go. The road stretched thin and uneven beneath their feet, more memory than path, winding away from the noise of the town and into open land where the sky felt closer. The girl listened as they walked. Every sound mattered now, the scrape of gravel, the distant call of a hawk, the creak of leather when the cowboy shifted his shoulders. These were her landmarks, her proof that she was still moving, still alive. She held onto his sleeve with careful fingers, afraid that if she loosened her grip even a little, this strange kindness might vanish like a dream. No one had ever walked beside her before. People usually walked ahead, dragging her along, or behind, pushing her forward. "You can let go," he said quietly, sensing the tension in her hand. "I ain't going nowhere." She hesitated, then slowly released his sleeve. Her hands hovered in the air for a moment, uncertain, before dropping to her sides. She took a few steps on her own, counting them in her head. 1, 2, 3. She smiled before she could stop herself. The cowboy noticed but said nothing. By late afternoon, the sun softened, and the air cooled. They reached a small homestead tucked against a low ridge. The house was simple, wooden walls, a porch that groaned under the weight of time, and wind chimes made from old horseshoes that sang gently as the breeze passed through them. "This is it," he said. She tilted her head. "It sounds peaceful." He nodded, then remembered she couldn't see him. "It is." He guided her up the steps, counting them aloud so she wouldn't stumble. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and coffee grounds. Everything was orderly but worn, like a place lived in quietly. He helped her sit at the small table and placed something warm into her hands. "Tea," he said, careful. She wrapped her fingers around the cup, savoring the heat. No one had ever warned her gently before. She took a small sip, then another, warmth spreading through her chest. "What's your name?" she asked. The cowboy paused, as if the question surprised him. "Eli," he finally said. She repeated it softly, testing the sound. "I'm Lila." They sat in silence after that, not awkward, just present. Outside, the horses shifted in the corral, and the wind chimes sang again. That night, he showed her the small room she would sleep in. He described it carefully: the bed by the window, the quilt folded at the foot, the chair in the corner. He let her trace the shape of the room with her hands, never rushing her, never correcting her unless she asked. Before leaving, he hesitated at the door. "You're safe here," he said. "No one's gonna sell you. No one's gonna hurt you." Her throat tightened. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. Sleep came slowly. Every unfamiliar sound startled her awake, but each time, she listened harder and found comfort in the steady creak of the house, the distant footsteps of Eli moving through the night. By morning, exhaustion finally pulled her under. Days passed quietly. Eli never treated her like something fragile, but he never forgot she was blind. He described the land when they walked, where the grass grew thick, where the ground dipped, where the fence posts stood like silent guards. He taught her to recognize his horses by the sound of their breathing and the way their coats felt beneath her hands. In return, she listened. She listened to the way his voice changed when he talked about the weather, relaxed and easy. She listened to the pauses when she asked about his past, the careful distance he kept between words. She listened to the sadness he never named. One evening, as they sat on the porch, she finally asked, "Why did you take me?" The wind chimes sang softly, filling the space between them. Eli leaned back in his chair. "Because I've seen what happens when nobody does." She waited, sensing there was more. "My wife was sold once," he said after a long moment. "Not at an auction like that. But she was treated like something to be traded. Used. Forgotten." Lila's fingers tightened around the edge of the porch. "I couldn't save her," he continued, voice roughening. "By the time I found her, there wasn't much left of the woman I loved. She died not long after." "I'm sorry," Lila whispered. "So was I," he said. For a long time, another silence, heavier than the first. "When I saw you up there," he said, "I saw her. Not how she was at the end. How she was before the world broke her." Lila swallowed. "Aren't you afraid I'll be a reminder?" He smiled sadly. "Maybe I need one." As weeks turned into months, the routine settled into something steady. Lila learned the shape of the land, the rhythm of the days. She helped where she could, sorting beans by touch, folding laundry, brushing the horses. Eli never praised her excessively, never made her feel like she was earning her place. She simply belonged. One afternoon, a rider approached the homestead. Lila heard the unfamiliar hoofbeats and stiffened. Eli stood slowly. "Stay here," she nodded, but fear crept up her spine. The past had taught her that being claimed once didn't mean being safe forever. The rider dismounted. "Eli," a man's voice called. "Didn't think I'd find you settled." "What do you want?" Eli asked. "Word reached town," the man said. "About the girl." Lila's breath caught. "They say you bought her. For $1. So, some folks are asking questions," the man replied. "They say you got no papers. No proof she's yours." Eli's voice sharpened. "She ain't property." The rider snorted. "That's not how the law sees it." Lila stood before she realized she was moving. She stepped onto the porch, hands shaking but head held high. "I'm here because I choose to be," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "No one owns me." The rider laughed. "Blind girl talkin' brave." Eli moved instantly, placing himself between them. "You're done here." The man studied him, then the girl. "Careful, Eli. Town don't like loose ends." When the rider finally left, dust settling behind him, Lila felt her knees weaken. Eli reached out, steadying her. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "Yes, I did," she replied. "I've been silent my whole life." That night, fear lingered like a shadow. But nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks. Word spread that Eli was not a man to cross. That the blind girl was not helpless. That the land itself seemed to stand guard over them. One morning, as Lila brushed a horse's mane, she smiled. "I can hear colors," she said suddenly. Eli raised an eyebrow. "That's so." "Yes," she said. "The wind sounds blue today." He chuckled, a rare sound, warm and surprising. She turned toward him. "You laugh more now." "Guess I do." "Why?" He considered. "Guess I ain't alone anymore." She felt something bloom in her chest, gentle and terrifying all at once. Seasons changed. Lila learned the sound of snow falling, the hush it brought to the world. She learned the scent of spring rain and the weight of summer heat. Eli learned how to speak again, not just with words, but with presence, with patience. One night, sitting close by the fire, their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. Eli, she said quietly. Do you regret it, buying me, I mean? He shook his head. I didn't buy you. She smiled. You saved me. He stared into the fire. No, you saved yourself. I just held out my hand. She reached for it now, fingers intertwining with his. This time, neither of them let go. And in the quiet between heartbeats, something unspoken took root, something not owned, not sold, not taken by force, but chosen, again and again, in the stillness of a life rebuilt step by step.